Ashley Banfield, on location, New York.
Welcome back, everyone, to New York City with a beautiful live picture of the Chrysler Building. Part of the Manhattan skyline is our backdrop. The other big part of the backdrop, of course, the East River, where tomorrow night at this time we'll be well into the fireworks display. It's one of the most prestigious across the country. It's the Macy's fireworks display. 5 big barges parked behind me, setting off their fireworks. Of course, all of this to the backdrop of something a little less exciting, perhaps the warnings of terrorist attacks on July the 4th, Independence Day, across this fine country. In fact, the mayor of this city, Michael Bloomberg, saying, relax and let our law enforcement officials do worrying for you. How many people will be able to relax that way? We'll talk a little bit about that coming up in this program, and also wanted to tell you that this city has put in place to accommodate for terrorist threats that might actually put a damper on tomorrow evening's events. 14 different checkpoints will be set up around this city. 4,000 extra police will be on patrol. A no-fly zone has been established over the Statue of Liberty, as well as other major areas and monuments across the country. Fighter jets will resume patrols over the New York area, and also a stealth bomber will be patrolling this area tomorrow night, too. The fireworks display tomorrow is being called a time for heroes because, of course, this is the first July 4th celebration since 9/11. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that will happen tomorrow night, 28,000 shells will be launched. 148,000 pounds of explosives will be packed into those 28,000 shells. 900 shells per minute will be launched, probably going up about as high as 1,000 feet into the air. Each of those shells weighs about 30 pounds, is about 8 to 12 inches in diameter. Halfway through this fireworks display, there's going to be a 30-second pause, at which point a bell is going to be ringing 11 times, which is to commemorate those who died here in New York City on September the 11th. 8 spotlights will also be shining into the air. You'll probably remember the towers of light, the tribute of light that was down near Ground Zero earlier on this year. That's supposed to simulate the 2 World Trade Towers that, of course, fell on September 11th, taking with them close to 3,000 people. If you have been to New York City, chances are, if it's been recent, you've probably been by Ground Zero, and you've probably also gone to the Statue of Liberty. And if you have, at the base of the Statue of Liberty, you've probably read these words: "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." These are words, of course, that many people read as a welcome invitation to immigrants to come to this fine country, to seek out a better life and to help in the economy of this country. But is that such a good idea nowadays, with such a threat that's looming of those who come here for more nefarious reasons than to seek out a better life? Instead, 19 hijackers came here to seek out death, not only their own, but thousands of others, too, American deaths. Joining me now to talk about this is Dan Stein, who is with the group FAIR, F-A-I-R, which stands for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Dan, let me just ask you, we've got a pretty tough new attitude about immigration in this country. Is it tough enough?
I think Americans are really at a crossroads here, because at one level we like to listen to the mythology of that poem on the statue and recognize that one of the virtues of our country is that anybody can come from anywhere and be a fine American. But at the same time, everybody can't come to America, and we simply can't accommodate 0.5% of the people who'd like to live in a country like the United States. And so I think we as a country, we've been very lax, we've been very casual about our approach to immigration and border controls, and it's frankly catching up with us. We're really
now, I have to be upfront and honest about my status in this country right now, because I am an immigrant. At this point, I'm on a visa, a work visa, and I have been for 7 years. It's been very difficult for me to go through this process. I think some of our viewers know about this, but for those who don't, it just stands to reason I should be forthcoming with this information as we have this conversation. But tell me what it is you think about legal immigration that is such a problem in this country, notwithstanding illegal immigration. I think everyone would agree with you, illegal immigration is a problem, but legal immigration.
First of all, remember, we want immigration to be responsive to the rule of law, and probably 30 to 40% of legal immigration is actually directly attributable to past illegal immigration, as Congress has been forced to accommodate the flows that have come. The second problem, of course, is it's driving, these are uncharted waters for this country, it is driving the kind of population growth we've never seen before in our history. We're going to add another 120 million more people, 120 million more in just the next 50 years, and if you take a look look at everything from schools and housing. 90% of our student population growth is a result of immigration. We don't have the roads, housing, the environmental pressures, and of course this whole question accommodating, assimilating people. How do you assimilate people coming in at such a rate and such a volume that we really don't even know what we're trying to do as a nation? Today we have people coming from all across the world, and we know from 9/11 that a lot of folks aren't coming here just to tour the Grand Canyon. They've got other agendas in mind. 1 in 7 immigrants is now, 1 in 7 Americans is now a dual national, which means they have divided loyalties to other countries. They hold citizenship in 2 or more countries. These kinds of things are very troublesome, not just to fair, but I think to most Americans that are saying, whoa, we need to take a breather.
Dan,
we got to take a breather.
I hope you don't take a breather before I get to become one of those statistics of the 1 in 7 who get dual citizenship in this country. I'm working my way towards that as well. And if the president gets his way, he's come up with a 4th of July gift, it seems, to 15,000 immigrants on active duty in the U.S. military, saying that he's going to grant immediate eligibility for citizenship. So answer me this question, if you will. A lot of people say immigration is part of America's great long history. Do you not agree that this is how this country was built and continues to become strong?
Immigration has played an important historic role in our country's development and history, but we're not dealing with anything dealing with tradition or history. We have never had sustained immigration levels like what we have today. The burden ought to be on the people who want to justify the current chaos or lack of an immigration system to justify why we need to bring in people that are going to cause, we're going to bequeath to our children and grandchildren a very overcrowded, very congested country if we continue on the present rate. Immigration is fine as long as it's consistent with what we as a people, as a country, are trying to achieve for our children and grandchildren. When it conflicts with those priorities, clearly the policy has to be adjusted. And what would be wrong if we took a breather? And let me ask you this, Ashley. When you take the oath of allegiance as an American citizen, why aren't you going to relinquish your former nationality?
Oh, it could be because of family members. I'm just saying that for my purpose, but I'm sure everybody else has a different reason. Let me ask you this, though. On the other side of the coin, a lot of people who argue for immigration say the economic pressure to maintain mass immigration is tremendous. Are we being altruistic, or is this a necessity? I mean, there's got to be another side to this that you obviously would witness and understand as well.
Well, see, what immigration is doing is simply redistributing wealth. It's creating more of an hourglass kind of structure. We have a tremendous increase in the poor in our country. Actually, we could have actually solved the war on poverty in the 1990s if we'd had much lower levels of immigration. What we're doing really is we have a policy that responds to Wall Street, Chamber of Commerce, the housing industry, and other special economic interests that use immigration to maintain their own particular economic benefit advantage. The rest of us wind up picking up the tab for schools, housing, roads, infrastructure. And the middle class winds up, as in most cases in this country on these kind of programs, winds up picking most of the tab for the cost of what is really a subsidy for mostly the very rich in this country. Immigrants often themselves benefit. We can't decide immigrant policy based on whether other people in other countries think they're going to be better off whether they come here, when they come here, because there are hundreds of millions or billions of people who'd like to live here. It's got to be based on our decision about what is in our best interest as a country. We as a country need to get involved in this debate. Americans need to start standing up and saying, hey, wait a minute, I think immigration's a great idea, but what's been going on for the last 25 or 30 years is not my idea of a prudent, sensible, modern, and moderate policy consistent with the United States in the 21st century.
Well, for the sake of this argument, I hope that I'm obviously I'm a pretty good citizen, or at least wannabe citizen here. I pay my taxes. I speed on occasion, but apart from that, I'm a pretty good person.
There are many people around the world who would make fine citizens, but that doesn't mean we can take them all. And I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're here, and I hope you exercise your obligations as a American citizen as well as we expect you will.
You know, the INS is watching. Dan Stein, it's to join us, and I'm glad you're here too. Thank you for doing this. Appreciate it.
Take care.
And by the way, Dan, stick around, because in a couple of minutes, another one of our citizenship questions up in the Great American Quiz, and I know that we get it right. Dan, thanks very much for joining us from Washington, D.C. tonight.